Hey, everybody, this is Art Kelly, and you're listening to the Friend Maker Podcast. Welcome back, and thank you for listening to these conversations here with business professionals and my friends who are committed to becoming the kind of people others want to do business with. I've been working on a resource for entrepreneurs and service industry professionals like you. It's a book called The 7 Spheres of a Friend Maker, and it's currently available for pre-order at www.friendmaker.org. You can check that out at your convenience. However, I don't want to waste your time with advertisements today, so let's just get started with today's conversation. Hey, everybody, this is Art Kelly with the Friend Maker Podcast, and today I'm excited to share with you that I'm on the horn with Bill Hampton. And Bill and I, we're just meeting right today, so thanks for giving me some of your time and just let me bend your ear for a little bit. So,
man, honored to be here, and congratulations on launching this podcast. I know that's a big step, but I know you've got some things that people need to hear. And so congratulations for that.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. That's it's been a bit of a passion project of mine. I've been selling real estate now for about almost 7 years, and and I'm a teacher at heart. And so really have felt like this is just something that's been near and dear to my heart, is dealing with people on a more relational way. And so I wrote a book and started, basically starting my own personal brand here, trying to teach people how to be friend makers in business. And so that's why you're on today, because I'm trying to talk to people who are maybe a little further down the road than I am, and may have had some more experience with all this stuff. And but yeah, so let's just get started. Bill, tell us a little bit about yourself, man. Your family, man. I saw on your Twitter that you're a husband, a dad. So obviously that's pretty important to you. Tell me a little bit.
I think on Twitter it says husband, dad, and competitor. I've lived here in Tennessee since 1995. I grew up in Michigan. I'm not from the South, but I got here as fast as I could, and absolutely love it here. My wife Amanda and I have 5 kids from 10 to 25 years old.
Yeah.
And that's a sweet place to be. I've got ones that have gone out and left the nest, and they're doing it on their own, and it's very fulfilling and special as a dad to see your kids kind of operating in their strengths and growing and developing. And then I've got 3 more at home that we're still working on. But yeah, it's going great. Life is good.
We're in the same boat. I have 4 children, 1 less than you. My oldest is 20 and my youngest is 12. And I'm working diligently to get my 20-year-old out of the house. So, but he's doing really good. I'm super proud of all of them. And yeah, man, it is a sweet place to be at this point.
Well,
have these kids.
We told them early, and I told them early. Coming home was not an option. Once they leave, they better start making plans, because they're not coming back. So it's worked so far.
Good. Well, tell me a little bit about your business experience. I know folks out here. I'm a little bit of a fanboy of Brian Buffini. I've been listening to his stuff for the last few years, and I know that you've spoken a few times with his organization, and so really have gleaned a lot of value from the things I've learned from that podcast and from that business organization and stuff. And but that being said, man, that's part of the reason why I'm excited to have you on here, because I feel like your voice is an important voice for people that are in business to be able to continue to hear, not just real estate agents, although that's my line of work, but there's a lot of folks that are in business that are just really struggling. They're looking at the economy the way it is right now. And, the biggest question a lot of folks have out there is, how am I going to get more clients in the middle of all of this? And how do I maintain and retain and sustain clientele through all this? But can you tell us a little bit about your business experience, where you come from that perspective, and how maybe some of this friend maker conversation might come into play into what you're experienced in your past.
Yeah, Art, at 51 years old, I had a good friend named John Acuff who lives here in Nashville, and he gave me a book the other day or a few months ago called From Strength to Strength. And in that book, it talks about kind of gearing up for the second half of your life.
Mm.
And one thing it refers to is at my age, 51, you begin to have what this book called crystallized knowledge. And kind of up to that point, you are gaining knowledge, or you're constantly developing knowledge. But at some point, it's crystallized. You kind of got it.
Mm-hmm.
And as I look over my career from a concert promoter, music management, I led a speakers bureau where I worked with authors, entertainers, and athletes for their public speaking engagements. Then spent the majority of my career, 13 years, leading and building the Dave Ramsey organization. And then when I left Dave, as you said, I got a call from Brian Buffini's organization. I actually got a call from Brian's brother, Dermot. He had just become CEO of the company, and he had met me once when I was at Dave's, but I actually didn't even remember meeting him. But and he said, "Hey, would you come out and look at our business and maybe help us out?" And I went out there, and fitting for your podcast, that became a relationship where, yes, I was a consultant. But man, I got to tell you, those are some of my dearest and closest friends. And yes, Brian has had me on his podcast. I actually built out his podcast for him and built out that studio and developed that. And now I'll be speaking at all of
Ramsey-esque stuff on his set whenever that first came out.
Well, it was like coming out of Ramsey, I learned a lot about leading companies where the leader is also the product. And there's some unique challenges in that. And Brian's company was kind of like that. So, I'm speaking at all of Brian's events next year and getting to share hopefully some of this crystallized knowledge with his realtors and his audience. And hopefully we'll add value to them and help them do better in their businesses.
So are you, do you call, I see you said that you're a passionate promoter, you're a competitor. Talk about that a little bit. Where did that come from, and what does that look like for you in your life and your business?
Art, when I was 7 years old, I met a millionaire. And I say that because where I grew up in Pontiac, Michigan, we didn't know a lot of millionaires. But there was a guy who grew up in Pontiac with my family, and he left and he went to Southern California. And that's significant because people where I grew up in my blue collar town of Southeast Michigan, they all talk about leaving, but nobody does. And Bill left. And not only did he leave, his name was Bill Mitchell. Not only did he leave, he went to Southern California. And that might as well have been the moon to me, right? Someone who lived there. And Bill was a guy who would come back to Michigan, and he looked good. He'd made a life for himself. I knew he was a millionaire, whatever that meant, but I loved it when the millionaire came back. But everything he did was big. An example I'll give you is he would come back to play in a golf tournament at our local club. And it was just a blue collar, hardworking golf club. But Bill would play in this tournament. And the founder of the tournament was his birthday every time. Whenever this tournament ran, it was over his birthday weekend. And one time, everyone started calling everybody out to the first tee, and we saw this plane flying around. And then all of a sudden, a guy jumped out of the plane, and behind this skydiver, it said, "Happy birthday, Lloyd Siren," who was the founder of the club. And this guy flies down and lands on the first tee, and Bill Mitchell did that. And I remember thinking, he could have called everyone around and we could have sang happy birthday, or he could have carried a cake to the first. No, Bill hired a skydiver to make that announcement. And I remember that at 7 years old, I went, oh, okay. I see how people react to that. That if you just do a little more, if you just give it a little pop, boy, people will remember that. And here I am, 44 years later, talking about that experience. I just remembered those things. So I'm a passionate promoter because I've seen how people react. I love to do things with our promotion, and it doesn't have to be huge, but you could do things that make people go, man, did you see what can you
Yeah.
believe he did that? And when
Hmm.
people start doing that, it's just that little extra that makes them remember it. That's
Yeah.
why I'm passionate about promoting.
It's there's a lot the wow factor, right? I think Michael Hyatt talked about that a long time ago in his platform
Yep.
stuff about how to create wow with your people. And but it's funny because I think there's a way to create wow that's like that can be disingenuous. You're not I don't know if
Can
that's the right
be.
word. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do you think you create wow in a way that's honest and authentic?
Well, I'll stick with Bill Mitchell,
Yeah.
my mentor. And when I was 18 years old, which would have been 1988. So yeah, we didn't have email, we didn't have things, but Bill sent me a telegram. And he sent me a telegram telling me that that he believed in me. He was
Uh-huh.
excited I was going off to college, and he wanted to
Yeah.
give me a scholarship for all 4 years to go to
Hmm.
college. He could have called me. He
Yeah.
could have sent me a letter. No, he sent me a telegram.
Telegram. Yeah.
And that was genuine. He was doing
Yeah.
something kind for me, but he
Yeah.
did it with a little different. And I
Yeah.
remember that. I probably wouldn't have remembered the call,
Hmm.
but I remembered I've never gotten a telegram before.
No,
so
that's
so I
crazy.
think that you can do, it's got to be genuine. It's
Yeah.
got to be, but you can still do it with a little bit of, it's like that scene in Toy Story where, you've got kids, you've seen this, where Buzz Lightyear, says he's going to fly. And actually what he does is, and Woody goes, that's not flying. That's just falling with style.
Falling with
So,
style. That's right.
so, hey, that's
Uh,
it.
I love it. That's so good, man. Yeah, man, that's so good. So something that I kind of touched on at the beginning, and something that's kind of the premise and the basis for my whole podcast and the conversation that I've been having with people. There's two big things. A lot of businesses have a problem of getting more clients, getting more customers, and the other big problem is being able to keep them. Following up with clients. And so a lot of what I've created here, and I say created. A lot of the conversation that I'm really trying to get started is how do we, really get clients and then keep them long term. And something in your business experience and the way that when you're talking to people right now, especially as we're in we're in a recession, like we've talked about that. I've talked that with several people. I mean, we're in a recession. That's what's going on. But that doesn't have to mean that your business is in a recession. Um, how
Mm,
how do people get clients when everybody around them is telling them the sky is falling? What do you
yeah.
see people doing that's really helping them in business, just in general, and how do they navigate through that?
Well, Art, I think there's something to the fundamentals.
Mm,
And there's fundamentals in business that do not go away, even though in 2022, going into 23, especially in your business in real estate,
yeah,
that's, the industry's changed a lot in the last couple of years. And people
yeah,
are always talking about, online and doing the, online leads, and whether it's Zillow or whether it's so many and there's things, and they're not all bad, but at the end of the
right,
day, people want to make an authentic connection with people, and
yeah,
those are the fundamentals, right? Like
hmm,
the basics, like when you have an appointment, you show up on time. When you have an appointment, you're not distracted, you're engaged. And I love the saying, be where your feet are, right? Like be all
yeah,
there, be where your feet are. And
yeah,
so at the end of the day, when uh, you know, any neighborhood these days in America seems to have their own Facebook page.
hmm,
And I live in a large community. We have a Facebook page, and people are referring people on that. They're
yeah,
referring service providers or real estate agents. And what it comes down to is, here's the key thing to remember is if you're a realtor, or you're a realtor,
hmm,
People are going to assume you know how to do the X's and O's of buying or selling a home.
Yeah.
They assume that. They give you the benefit of the doubt that you know how to do that.
That's right.
But what keeps the client? What keeps the client is, man, was this guy interested in me? Did he genuinely care? Did he show up on time? Is he working hard for me? When I call him on the phone, do I feel like I'm bothering him, or do I
Yeah.
feel like he's appreciative that I called and he was excited to help me? Man,
Mhm.
you do those fundamentals well, you're not going to have a problem
Yeah.
getting and keeping clients.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good, man. I love, and that's something that I've put into practice for the last several years in my business. When I first got into business, everybody was telling me you had to, do all these cold methods of trying to get into people. And there was a certain level of that. Like you're always going to have to do some, especially if you come into a community and you don't know anybody, you've got to connect with people. So there's going to be some of that cold development of new connections and stuff. But once you get into those client relationships, the thing I have found is that you can make friends all you want, but if you suck at your job, then like that really that you're not going to keep
Amen.
clients, you know what I mean? So there's
Amen.
a certain
Amen.
the skills that pay the bills, right? That's what they always say. And
Well, I think one of the things you talk about is that friend. It's not friendship, but
mhm.
that being a friend is at the core of good business, of keeping
Yeah.
clients. And when I read that, I thought, I know what you're saying, but you just said it.
Mm.
What's at the core of business is that you're great at what you do.
Yeah.
You got to be great at what you do. Then those other things matter, and they matter huge. And I think what you're talking about is exactly right. But it leads with, you've got to be really good at your business.
Yeah.
And then you get an opportunity to build that friendship and retain that client for a long time.
When you're doing work with other businesses and corporate, companies and stuff like that, and you're talking to them about this kind of thing, and you're looking at their businesses, are you seeing like, I mean, I think that would be, this will validate or not validate some of the things I've been trying to say.
Okay.
Because
All right.
talking to somebody like
Pressure's
you,
on.
who's, and again, it's fine. I want honesty, obviously. But like, are you seeing this to be true, that there are a lot of businesses and companies that operate more in a transactional way rather than a relational way? And is that a problem? Like, are you seeing that to be a problem with businesses in our country? And I'd just be curious. I
Yeah.
mean, that's probably a
Yeah.
yes or no question, but
No. Look, it's the industry, and look, you happen to
yeah,
be in an industry, and I spend a lot of time speaking to realtors and
yeah,
coaching and consulting realtors. Man, I love the real estate industry because that is an industry of people that are genuinely committed to self improvement, to personal development. They're
yeah,
trying to get better.
yeah,
And I grew up in a real estate home. My dad was a realtor for 40 years, and so I was surrounded by that. I got a front row seat to see that, but it's still true. So
hmm,
in the real estate industry, I think the good ones, the ones that are going to hang around and have success, I
yeah,
think they understand relational sales. But
hmm,
man, going back in the mid 80s, a lot of the real estate coaches and things, they used to teach techniques for
yeah,
closing the sales, and man, it was
right,
so manipulative.
yeah,
And when you hand somebody the contract, you let the pen fall in their hand, or
yeah.
you do these certain things. And so I think that has certainly happened, and there
Yeah,
are techniques and scripts, and I'm a believer in that. I think it's
yeah,
important to practice your scripts and try to get better at leading people towards a sale. There's nothing wrong with that. but
yeah,
but man, I got to tell you, I think in a lot of industries, especially young people, um, I don't take it away from them because they're hustling and they're trying hard. But
yeah,
but man, they could really benefit from learning what you're talking about, because it is transactional and they are just trying
yeah,
to make a sale. I tell you one thing though about real estate. I saw a 60 Minutes interview back in the spring, and they were profiling the real estate industry because it was so hot, just 8 months ago,
Mm-hmm.
multiple offers and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so 60 Minutes was doing a thing on it, and they were interviewing an agent in Florida. And the interviewer, Leslie Stahl, she said to this agent, who was just, they were talking about how hot the market was. And she said to
Yeah.
this agent, she goes, "What do you have to do to get a home ready to sell these days? Do you got to do landscaping? Do you got to put on a new roof? Do you have to stage it? What do you have to do?" And the agent looked at her and she said, "Leslie, you just have to list it." And when she said that, I was like, oh man, because man, do you think she's kind of lost some of the fundamentals? Do you think she
Yeah.
treats people like a commodity?
Yeah, I'd love to see
Yeah,
that
because
conversation now, right? See where she's at
yeah,
today.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it doesn't work out, well, there's another one. She had an all you have to do is list it mentality.
Yeah.
But I think as a general rule, realtors are really good at being relational and really trying to provide a great experience. And if they're not in it for long, or they're not successful because there's another realtor somebody can go use, and they will.
Yeah.
They'll go find somebody else.
Yeah.
Being a great realtor is more than just getting the home sold.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartly. I'm there, and we're all like those of us that are real estate agents that are out here doing this. I've been blessed this last couple of years to have easier. It's been easier to sell homes, but one of the things that I've even encouraged my listings to do, even throughout all the last couple of years, has been do a pre-listing home inspection. Make it easier for if you're going to have people that are going to waive your home inspections because they were, give them a pre-listing home inspection, because that they need to know what it is they're buying. So just do them the favor as a seller and give them, it costs you $400 and maybe a headache because you got to do a few repairs, but and you didn't have to do that during this last few years, but I always encourage my folks to do that because it's just that little extra that you do. And now it's because that's just the way I've been doing it. Every time I talk to a seller, I just tell them, even now, hey, you definitely need to do a pre-listing home inspection right now, because buyers are going to have a home inspection now because they can, and there's no competition.
That's right. That's right.
Anyway, can you tell me maybe something in your past or in your life, or something that you've experienced where you've seen that business and friendship, mixing these two things, did not go well?
Man, that's gonna have to have me dig in deep here.
Yeah, you don't have to say any names or anything like that, but
no, I won't say names, but no,
or
I don't know that I can, Art. And the reason why is now it can go bad if one is conditional upon the other. If there's conditions to it, then yes, it could go bad. And maybe that has probably happened. I don't know that I can recall a specific example right now, but I would think that when somebody said, well, I thought, for example, someone might say, well, I thought we were friends. Well, we are, but that doesn't supersede or override the business relationship that we have. There's still rules around this relationship, and you're absolutely my friend. But so I think sometimes when people place conditions upon it, they think that that's going, no matter, even if bad business is done, or if the business deal's no longer good, that the friendship should just cover that up. And well, then that's not healthy.
Yeah. Well, and that goes back to what we were talking about, being skilled at what you do, setting proper expectations with people on the front end, that, hey, this is what this relationship is going to look like as we go into this business deal, and being able to set those proper expectations. So that way, when the crap hits the fan, the expectation was already set. Okay. And then here's how, and owning up to, I've seen people that have had family relationships messed up because of, bad business deals or whatever, but it always came down, I felt like, to integrity, to trust that was established and whether expectations were set properly,
Boy,
Um,
Boy, unmet
yeah.
expectations, whether they were spoken or not, unmet
Mhm.
expectations are what I see more frustration and where things just start to go wrong.
Yeah.
It's always born out of unmet expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. So I sent you something a couple days ago. I have this little survey that I've created for all of the people that come on my podcast,
Yeah.
and you sent it back this. I got it this morning, and just wanted to talk to you. This is a little bit more personal, but I'd love to get some insight as to what kind of makes you tick. And as I was looking through the seven sphere, basically I've created this for those of you that are unaware of this. You can go to friendmaker.org/survey, and you can take this little survey, and it basically asks you about 35 questions that are each, there's, I don't know, 5 questions each in each sphere, and kind of helps to kind of get an idea. Listen, there's not a lot of science behind this. I just created these questions to just kind of give people a gauge, to kind of help
Yep.
them figure out, where do they fit within this framework that I've come up with. So anyway, I had you fill out a 7 spheres survey, and there were some things on that survey that pops up and basically shows you where you're strong, where you're weak, and where you could use some improvement, that kind of thing. And that's why I created that for folks. As I was looking through your answers, the sphere of learning was the kind of the top one that you scored at, and so a couple of the questions I had in that particular sphere had to do with personal growth, had to do with being able to listen to people well and learn what makes them tick, and and naturally being able to gather information from people to learn more about them. But just curious, I know that, like, talk to me about that for you personally. Why do you think that came as one of the top ones for you,
Yeah.
and how does that play out in the way you interact with the people you work with?
Well, and I'll just say, I think that assessment that you offer, yeah, it's simple, but it's really interesting, and I think it's insightful into which of those spheres we are most. For me, it was what are we most naturally gifted
Mm.
at. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in, I think we were all created with unique gifts. And when we're operating in those unique gifts,
Mm.
I believe I'm the best in the world when I'm truly
Yeah.
dialed in to what I was uniquely created to do. So listening, man,
Yeah.
I think people are fascinating. I
Yeah.
think their story is so interesting and
Mm.
I really want to know it.
Mhm.
And so I ask a lot of questions,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of throwing those things out. I always think when I talk to people, I envision that it's like a Tetris game, and with every question, every one of their answers, I'm twisting those pieces a little bit, and I'm trying
Yeah.
to build this foundational block
Mm.
so that we have something to go from. I
Mhm.
also love listening because they might say something, and that's going to give me a way that down the road I can wow them with a little thoughtful gesture, or I
Yeah.
can do something, or I can mention something to them down the road that goes, "Hey man, you mentioned this. How'd that go?" And most
Mhm.
people be like, "How did you know that?" I mean, I hear that a lot. People will go, "How did you know that?"
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I listened.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking of when you were talking, I wasn't trying to think about what I was going to say next. I
Mm.
was listening to what you were saying. And
Mhm.
so it's just, I is it effective? Yes. Do I do it because it's effective? I don't think so. I think I'm just genuinely interested in people.
Yeah, yeah. It's that's I tell people all the time, I don't make friends so that I'll get business, but I get business because I make friends.
That's right.
And
That's right.
there's just that little nuance, that the motive behind everything that we do, that really really matters. The other thing that you scored high on was the sphere of leadership, serving people powerfully in a transaction, helping them navigate through the whole process. Can you speak into that, and
Yeah.
why that was so high on your list as well?
Well, Art, I coached Little League Baseball for many years. I coached my sons, and if you gave me the choice to coach high school baseball or college baseball or coach 5 and 6 year olds, I would coach 5 and 6 year olds. And the reason why is, man, I got to tell you, and you get that kid up to bat, his parents are watching him, you know, he wants to do well, and he can't hit the ball. But when I can get him to hit the ball, when I can get him to make contact, and he runs to first, and I get so excited. I would jump up and I would chase him to first, and I would yell and I would scream, and sometimes I would lift him off the ground and I would celebrate with him, man. Because why? Because he couldn't do something, and now he could. Because you know what? Now that he can, he'll do it again. And I carry that same attitude into business and people that I lead, whether it's at Dave Ramsey's company or whether it's people that I'm coaching. Man, let's do something we haven't done before. And if I can play a role in that and getting people to accomplish things that maybe they didn't think they could accomplish, man, that fires me up and I get excited about it. And so that's how I lead. But once again, I think that's what I was uniquely created to do. And my experiences have confirmed it. And I just try to keep doing it.
You know, that when you're talking, I'm just sitting there going, you know, that I think that like there's just so much that people are, they're constantly under a cloud because of whatever's out there in the world that's telling them, whether it's the news or if it's somebody personally in their life that's just constantly speaking negativity into them. And to have somebody who can see something in you that you can't see in yourself yet, but that can almost draw that. Well, it can definitely draw that out of you. Is such it's so empowering for people to have that kind of leadership in their life, to have people that can do that. I've sat down with so many families that when we start the process of trying to buy a house or whatever, they just never thought they could do it. Right. Like they just walked into this process and they're like, I didn't even think I was anywhere near. And then we go through that process and we walk them through all of the ups and downs and the roller coaster of getting them to the end. And then we get to the end, we get to the closing table and I'm handing them the keys, or I'm at the house with them and I'm taking a picture of them or whatever, or bringing pizza boxes to them, you know, on moving day or whatever. And they're just the look on their face and the joy and the excitement of them seeing that they're able to do something that they didn't think they could do. And
that's right. That's right.
It's so powerful. And you create like, I've something that's really kind of helped me as I've gone through this process and had these conversations with folks is seeing that oftentimes when I begin a relationship with somebody, a business relationship, we're not friends. We're just acquaintances, or we just, you know, and as we go through the spheres of a friend maker, the idea of listening and then learning and then liking them, and the relationship kind of moves to a different level. Like one of the things I started to see as I put this whole thing together was that this is really like levels of relationship that you're with people. And then by the time you get to the end of the process where you're loving in the sphere of loving with these people, it's that consistent after the sale care. You've created a friend. If you've created a friend throughout the process, then you have a friend for life. You have referral business, you have repeat business, and people will continue to come back to you because you have given them something that they didn't have before, and which is pretty powerful.
Absolutely.
So last couple things I wanted to ask you as we were, something I wanted to ask you about, this is just specific to you and your transitioning from working at places like Ramsey. Whenever you're moving from one place to another, I know that like there's always that phase, especially if you're starting new things or doing new things. How did you navigate? Okay, I have all these old relationships and these old clients and that kind of stuff, and then moving into a new business venture. How does that look when somebody is going from one place to another, trying to navigate the relational aspect of clientele? And because I know like a lot of folks deal with like non-compete disclosures and that kind of stuff when you're dealing with new clients. How do you navigate that with integrity? Does that make sense, that question?
I think so. What I hear you asking me is, you know, if you leave in one company, going to another, you got relationships from the other company. How do you maybe continue those relationships without,
Yeah.
with integrity
Yeah.
and you know, honoring? Um, you know, I think that might be more. No, that's not true. You know what? So I'll give an example. When I left Dave Ramsey's company, um, and I would have either clients of that I had when I was at Ramsey's,
Yeah.
or even current employees who were at Ramsey's who would reach out to me, whether it be about coaching them or, you
Yeah.
know, hey, can we have coffee? Which was always like, it always meant maybe I'm frustrated at my job and I'd love your advice. And I'm like, man,
Yeah.
that's dangerous
Yeah.
territory.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so, man, look, the only way I know to address those things is to address those things.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
would just email Dave and I'd say, hey, man, listen, so and so's reaching out to me
Yeah.
and I want to honor our relationship.
Yeah.
So, do you have a problem with me meeting them? Or if I do, man, you know, I'll you know, I'll say nothing but good things. But
Yeah.
and Dave, you know, Dave just said, Bill, I trust you 100%. Meet with anyone you want to meet with. Okay, great.
Yeah.
It's been
Yeah.
addressed, right? And Dave
Yeah.
responded that way. But
Hmm.
I addressed it. I think so many
Yes.
times people go, "Oh man, I don't know if this is okay," but then ask.
Yeah.
And you know what? If you're a person of integrity, if you're a person who has a track record of consistently trying to do the right things, um, people are going to trust. You get trust built up. You have so many deposits in your account
Yeah.
that people just trust that. And
Yeah.
so the only way I know to do it is just to address it
Yeah.
and talk about it. And now I will tell you, there are times when I think, you know what? Today, and maybe there's been some distance there,
Yeah.
but sometimes I'll think, you know what, if I ask someone about this, they're going to have a problem with it, and I've really considered it and they shouldn't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to, I think the more time between the relationship, so
Yeah.
Art, I process out loud. The more I talk, the clearer it gets to me. So
It's okay. I'm the
but
same
I
way.
would
Yeah.
say when you first leave something, you
Yeah.
might want to be very sensitive to it and address it.
Yes. Be
As
proactive.
time happens, well,
Yeah.
then you can, you know, then maybe you can make more of those decisions on your own. But
Yeah.
it's always done through the filter of integrity.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that. I think maybe a better way for me to have asked that question would be, how do you finish well when you're starting something new?
There you go.
You know,
There you go.
something, my youth pastor, I'll never forget it. When I was in high school, I don't know, 30 years ago, he gave me a book, and I don't remember the name of the book, but I do remember he gave me 3 books, and every single one of them, he wrote a little blurb in, and every single one of them, he wrote "finish well." And,
Mm.
you know, and I think that's, you know, learning how to transition in whatever you're doing, business wise. You know, there's people that are in brokerages that move from one place to the other, and all they do is talk bad about the last brokerage they worked for. But learning how not to burn bridges, especially when you're in a service industry, period.
It's
The
huge.
more connections I can make with more people, like, other realtors are not my enemy. They're not really my competition. I'm really my own competition. I want to know as many more. And listen, I'm getting phone calls every week from 20 or 30 mortgage people because they're all desperate.
Yeah.
And I'm saying yes to every invitation because I want to get to know more people. And because at the end of the day, you know, I know that if especially as I'm listing more homes, I'm going to run across people that have a mortgage company that's going to be working with their buyer. And if I know that or that mortgage person, then I'm going to be able to speak with integrity to my seller and say, hey, you know what? I know this guy. I know when he says he's going to get it done, he's going to get it done. And that just gives more credibility, not only to me and my business, but also to that other person whenever they put their name on a piece of paper and throw it my way. And I'm trying to convince somebody that they need to work with that person, you know?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
so,
Absolutely. And you know, when you leave, I think when you leave places, I give this lesson to my kids all the time. It's like,
mm,
guys, listen, you can only be responsible for how you act.
yeah,
You cannot be responsible for how other people react or
yeah,
how they, you know, how they respond to what you did. So that will wear you out trying to think of how they're going to respond.
Yeah.
You're responsible for how you act. You do the right thing consistently, then you can lay your head on the pillow at night and go, hey, I know that I acted with integrity.
Yeah.
I'm not responsible for how they act. That'll
Mhm.
save you a lot of sleepless nights.
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I've got just last thoughts for our conversation, and thank you for giving us some of your time today, Bill. It's really
Man,
been good to get to
absolutely.
know you some and just hear a little bit of your story. And I hope that as folks are listening, they can glean. I'm sure they will glean some value out of this conversation. Um, what kind of advice would you give any business or a new manager or supervisor about how to develop relationships? Is there anything you would add to the conversation that we've had today about being more relational in your business? How would you, what advice would you give to anybody that's in business right now, trying to start a new business or keep their business sustained through this time?
Man, I would say, first of all, um, when you get an opportunity with a new customer, for whatever reason, they've seen your promotion, you were referred to them, whatever it might be. Whenever you get an opportunity, you got to crush that first interaction.
Yeah.
You know, there was a great book written a few years ago, several years ago, called The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath.
Mm.
And in that book, they give an example of a student's experience. In the 4-year experience that a college student has, 40% of what they remember about that entire experience comes in the first 6 weeks. And
Wow.
so the way that I look at that, I go, okay, so a 2-year experience is remembered in 3 weeks, a one
Hmm.
year, a week and a half. Well, in
Mm.
the real estate industry or in any service business, in the service industry, you got about 30 seconds to make an impression. So if you show up and you're mad because someone cut you off, or if you're mad because your son forgot something at school again and you
Yeah.
had to run back to school, you
Hmm.
missed it. You
Yeah.
missed it. Man,
Hmm.
you got to so I would say every new relationship, man, treat it like it is the last relationship you might ever have, and
Yeah.
show up with you got to be ready to play and give them all you got, and
Mm.
be engaged and be interested and be listening and
Yeah.
look at them and don't be distracted, and then work and then do really, really good work. And they will tell other people about you. I promise.
Yeah.
People are dying for that. Give it
Mm.
to them.
Mm. So good, Bill. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. So rapid fire bonus questions. I like doing this at the end of
Great.
this thing. Have everybody. So I changed this first question because I found as I asked this question, people would immediately think that I'm talking about anger when I say what stirs you up. So let's just start with what makes you angry.
What makes me angry?
Yeah.
Um,
What makes you mad?
People who think they're better than someone else. People who are arrogant, an arrogant heart. Dude, it fires me up, man. I just, maybe there's a justice thing in me or something, but people who are arrogant,
Mm.
it fires me up.
What gets you excited?
Um, Opportunities to help, to add value. I genuinely believe it, Art. I just want to spend the majority of my time doing what I feel like I'm uniquely created to do. And if I
Yeah.
can do that, my energy levels through the roof. I don't get tired. I just am so thankful and excited to get to do those things. So helping people
Yeah.
and seeing progress, seeing people do things that they maybe wouldn't have done on their own. Maybe I was able to contribute to that. That
Yeah.
gets me fired up.
Mm. Um, what moves your heart?
Mm. Ooh, that's a good one.
Hmm.
My family, my kids, but I would say also the same thing. Like
Yeah.
anytime somebody makes progress,
Yeah.
anytime someone overcomes an obstacle, they had adversity in their life and they figured out a way to overcome that. man, that it fires me up and it touches me.
Yeah.
It gets me emotional. Those
Yeah.
are the things.
Hmm. Name your favorite movie and why.
Oh, Moneyball. I love the movie Moneyball,
It's a great movie.
because it's an underdog story.
Yeah.
Um, but the lead character, Brad Pitt, who
Hmm.
plays Billy Beane, general manager for the Oakland A's. Um, but he had boldness.
Mm.
He had to address people. He went against the grain. I love that.
Yeah.
And he was committed to a big, huge goal, and he was all in. And he was just a guy. He was flawed. He had his own internal struggles. He worked through
Yeah.
things, but I love it because I resonate with him.
Yeah.
And he had some swagger. I like that. I mean,
Yes.
I love movies like Rudy. I love any underdog story, but I like Moneyball because he had some swagger.
Yeah.
He was fearless. He just jumped in
Yeah.
and did it, and I love that.
That's so good. It's been a while since I've seen that movie, but I loved it too, for the same
It's
reasons.
great.
What keeps you up at night?
Nothing. Nothing keeps me up at night, Art. Listen, I wake up in the morning. I either go work out hard or I work hard, and I work hard all day.
Yeah.
And then I go home. I have intentional time with my family, and it's a joke around our house when I say, "Hey, it's time for me to go to bed." My wife will go, "Oh, it must be 9:29." But at 9:29, man, and I'm telling you, when I go in the bedroom, I am in bed by like 4 minutes
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
I am on a mission, and my kids know it.
Yep.
But it's because I got a lot to accomplish the next day, and I found the
Yeah.
harder I work, the more I exert myself, the better
Yeah.
I sleep, and I have less anxiety.
Yeah.
And so I mean it. Nothing keeps me up at night.
What gets you up in the morning?
All those things that are going to help me sleep well at night. I got up my alarm went off at 5:40 this morning, and I went to the gym and I had a great workout, and I was excited about doing this podcast with you, and I'm excited about a call that I have here a little later, and I'm excited about what I'm doing, and I look forward to doing things that'll make me the best version of myself so that I can show up and be excellent at those things. So that's what gets me up.
Well, I really appreciate what you shared today. Thank you so much. You made a comment at the beginning of our conversation, and I really probably most resonated with the idea of crystallized knowledge. Something, and there's a guy here in town that I ran into a few years ago. And when I was about 30, I was in my mid 30s, and I was kind of having like an awakening personally of just new things. And then as I got into my 40s, same thing. And now I'm just a little bit behind you. I'm 47. I'll be 50 here in a few years. And so I'm staring 50 in the face, and I'm thinking a lot about how do I take the things that I've learned at this point, and I've shared this in my first podcast about Indiana Jones taking that handful of gravel at the end of that first movie or third movie where he takes the leap from the lion's head and he walks across the invisible. I feel like I'm Indiana Jones standing on the backside of that thing, holding a handful of gravel and trying to throw it back to the people behind me and say, hey, there is a bridge here. There is a path, and you can see it. I've been on it. And, and I've still got some bridges in front of me, that I've still got to cross that are leaps of faith as well. But being able to be in this stage in life, to be able to have like what you're talking about, that crystallized knowledge, it's not a place of arrogance, but it's definitely a place now of strength that I didn't have before, because
That's
of the
so
things
good.
that we've been through,
That's so good. That's a great visual too.
Yeah.
I love that scene.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Bill. Appreciate your time. Thanks for the conversation, and maybe we'll get a chance to meet face to face sometime.
Art, I really enjoyed it. Congratulations again on stepping out and doing the podcast. I'm inspired by that, and you did a great job.
Well, thank you, man. Appreciate you. Have a great day.
All right. Have a good one.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Uh-huh. Well, folks, that about wraps it up for today. Thanks again for listening. I hope that you were able to glean some great content out of our conversation today. I want to remind you again, please go to friendmaker.org if you'd like to pre-order a copy of my upcoming book, The 7 Spheres of a Friendmaker. If you'd also like to have me come speak, maybe you have a corporate event or a company office sales meeting or something that you need somebody to come in and do one of these Friendmaker workshops with you, I would love to help you out with that. Go to friendmaker.org/speaking where you can book having me come and do that. And finally, if you are interested in learning where you personally fall within the 7 Spheres framework, go check out friendmaker.org/survey and take the 7 Spheres survey. It's 35 questions that you can go through, and it'll basically help you figure out where are my strengths and where are my weaknesses within the 7 Spheres framework. Thanks again for listening. Stay tuned for next week's conversation. I appreciate you tuning in.